okay. Okay.
I mean, you don't have to, but
No, it's okay. Why isn't it? Sorry, you guys have a different setup. Let's see.
They also got
Just a
glasses on.
second, Roger. Just a second.
Okay.
Go.
That's
that
better.
should work.
Okay.
Okay, so
come-
hi everybody.
FYI, this
How
is
come Lorelai's so little?
Oh my God. Everybody's talking.
You can mute all of us.
uh, this is recording. That's the last thing I'm going to say.
You're recording all this?
Yes.
So I shouldn't talk dirty, huh?
Don't talk bad about Sonia
No, I won't.
or Nick. But Yanni, you can talk bad about Yanni.
No, I don't want to talk bad about
No.
anybody.
It's being recorded, then you'll use it later on as
Talking dirty is different than talking bad about someone.
Oh, a cup of hot cocoa. Doesn't that sound good?
How come you got cocoa?
From Cabela's. It's coffee.
Oh.
Mm.
Okay.
Anyhow,
We're here.
okay, so Nick is here to say hi. He works at 11. You work at 11:30?
Yeah.
So he's just going to be
Hi,
here for a few
Nick.
minutes. Hi, Nick.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Anyhow, so I'm
Isn't
taking
this kind of
astronomy.
magic?
Stop.
Oh, it's okay.
It's all about me, isn't it?
Stop interrupting.
It is. It's all about you. So I'm taking an astronomy class, and we have extra credit options, and some of those options are things like visit an observatory or a museum of space, or witness a celestial event. And I said, or how about I interview my father, retired research scientist? And the teacher said that would be wonderful.
Okay.
Good.
And it's just an extra credit project. It's not a major, huge
Well,
research
I'm-
major. It's just a couple paragraphs of about you and your experiences at NASA. So I wrote down a couple of questions. There's one, two, I don't know, a few questions, and I thought I'd just ask them, and then we could just casually talk about them. So
Look at the hair growing out of Lorelai's ears.
she's got a lot of hair.
Those are my ears. They're my
Oh.
Afghan ears.
It does look like
Afghan
Afghan.
ears. Oh my God. So anyhow, Lorelai kind of helped me put these questions together also. And one of the ones that's the top of my list is one that Lorelai kept saying I need to ask. And it's when did you know you were interested in the night sky? And were there any influential people or historical figures that helped fuel that interest?
Interested
the
in
night sky.
In the night sky. Well, a lot of stars up there. I liked naming them. And I liked reading about the Greek mythology, about the characters in the sky.
That's not when.
No. Oh, you want to know when?
No,
I don't remember when.
These types of answers. Yeah.
I always knew I was going to be in a job that had nothing to do with practical things, always theoretical. I never intended that my career should be where I did anything that was useful, that is useful in an everyday sense. I'm not sure how to answer your question. When the sky, of course, I grew up in San Francisco. You didn't get to see the sky there. At 15 years old, I moved to Palo Alto, and I could see the sky there. And the sky was fascinating, all the stars. I don't think I ever thought I would be devoting my intellectual life to studying the stars when I was young like that. Am I answering your question in a way that makes any sense?
It's perfect. Yes, it's totally perfect.
I didn't think so. I'm sorry.
No, you did. So that was kind of Lorelai's question she was interested in. So my question is, did you have any mentors that influenced you? Your dad or a teacher, or prior to jumping feet first into
Dr. Posey.
Well, I had at college, I had teachers that I looked to be able to discuss stuff with them. one of which Kathleen reminds me was Dr. Posey. And Dr. Posey was a physics teacher at San Jose State, and he was the first Black physics teacher hired. And he was very, very good mentor. He helped a lot.
Okay, that's good.
And how
But-
did you get to know Dr. Posey?
He just came to be the physics department. I was a physics major. And we'd sit around and just talk. Oh, Kitty.
Okay, that's
I'm
good.
trying to-
Yeah, the questions don't have to be elaborate, just, a few sentences here and there, unless you want to elaborate. It's nothing.
Well, I'm trying to think that you might like to know if there were some famous figures that kind of inspired me.
Yes.
And one of which wasn't a scientist, but he was very influential, was can't think of his name. It's just
Doesn't help.
what Russell, Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell, I read all of his stuff. He was a mathematician, and I was very influenced by him. What else I'm thinking?
Was the person that encouraged you to go into science when you were a bus boy?
It was always me. It just was other people were.
No, there was somebody who came in.
Yeah, there was a guy that used to come in late at night, and he was just a figure that I thought was really interesting to know. He was a kind of a homeless Black person look about him, and he'd come in at late at night and have a piece of pie.
Wasn't that Dr. Posey?
No, that was Paul Bird, and Paul Bird used to come in and he and I got to be friends. We talked about stuff, and he saw me working on an advanced mathematics course homework, and I was doing it very complicated. He said to me, "Oh, you don't have to do all that. Make this substitution. It's very easy." And he goes, do. And I thought, oh gosh. So turned out that he was not in a happy marriage, and he escaped by going in at late at night, like 12 o'clock, have some pie and coffee at the local drive-in where I was a soda jerk.
Wasn't he a
Yeah.
professor or something?
He was a big shot mathematician for NASA,
That
one of
was
the
it.
brightest mathematicians they had. And he brought me a book that he had written, all in German. He liked his his works in German, all about a particular field of mathematics that I didn't know anything about. But
This
we're
was the guy
important.
at the restaurant?
Came
Oh,
in the
wow.
restaurant late at
Almost
night. His name was Paul Bird.
And he worked at NASA?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there was another guy that came in who wasn't. I didn't know him in a technical sense, but he said, since I was getting near graduating from college, that I should apply at NASA because they were hiring people. And I went over there and applied, and I got hired, and that started it all off.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
But what
So
was
that-
your first job there?
What?
What was your?
Laura, we haven't got to that yet.
Okay, you ask the questions. I'm going to shut up.
I do have that on.
Go. Sorry.
Because I've got a list of questions. I want to get through them, and I'm afraid it will take hours if we
Got it.
keep going different directions.
I have
So-
loads of time.
So, kind of just a housekeeping. You were educated, San Jose State physics major. Do you know what year you graduated?
I started out majoring in physics, but I took all of their math classes as an undergraduate. And one of the math professors, if you like names, I remember him, Dr. Myers, he said, why don't I have a major in mathematics also? Because I've taken all the classes. So I changed my major to be mathematics and physics, the BA in both.
Okay. And do you remember what year you graduated from San Jose State?
Oh, gosh, no. I
Okay,
graduated
we'll
from
make-
Palo Alto High School in 53. So it would have been 4 or 5 years after that, I guess.
Okay. And then next you went to Stanford. And then what was your major at Stanford?
I
Your,
went,
master's?
when I was working at Ames Research Center, the laboratory, NASA laboratory, and they had a provision you could take courses at Stanford, and they would pay the tuition and all, and the courses were either had to do with what you were doing or they were leading to a degree. Well, a lot of us went there and got our master's degree that way. So I took a whole lot of courses at Stanford, leading to a master's degree in aerospace, aero engineering and aerospace. I forget the department.
And then aerospace.
This will all
And then,
for you, Sonia.
okay, and then York University, that's where you got your PhD?
Yeah.
And what was your major? Oh, do you remember what year you graduated from Stanford?
No, I don't remember.
Okay.
He didn't
And then
really
York,
graduate.
I got a degree from Stanford.
Yeah, he got a degree
A
from
master's.
Stanford.
well, what year
Not
you
like a graduation.
Yeah,
I didn't.
and then
I could have gone to a graduation class, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the year, but I can guess it was probably around 65 or 66. But I continued to take classes there anyway. But I should point out, if you really get keen on something that I could brag about for you, I took a whole lot of courses in chemical engineering and fluid mechanics, and the really, really highfalutin stuff. And I learned how to get an A in every course. And I think since I had got my master's degree, I must have taken 15 classes that had really highfalutin name sounds and got an A in everything. So I got a
amazing.
transcript from them that just shows all A's. So I thought that's kind of cool. And
that is very cool.
and then we got to know a professor from York University, Rafe Nichols. That was his name, Rafe Nichols. And
I recognize that name.
his first name was spelled Ralph, but it was Rafe, we called him. That was his name.
He called himself.
And he was encouraging us to come and spend a year in Toronto at York University, where he directed the program in the Center for Experimental Space Science. And several of us went there and spent a year on site at the university, all on government expense, by the way. And then eventually took a doctor's degree there.
So right.
And then what was your doctor's degree
Well,
in?
it was awarded by the CRESS, CRESS, which was Center for Experimental Space Science, and the subject I developed was how nitric oxide emissions could be eliminated from jet engines, airplanes with jet engines. Nitric oxide emissions aren't very nice, but I figured out a way to eliminate them, but nobody cared. I got a
We
patent
care.
on it though.
Oh, it's patented.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you got your PhD, was it a PhD in a specific thing, or is it just the
The PhD is awarded by a department, and that's the department, CRESS. And the thing that specifies what it's about is my thesis problem, which was elimination of nitric oxide emissions from jet aircraft engines.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so then and that was like 1971, I think.
Yeah, somewhere around there. And you
Okay.
got a copy of my thesis. You and Lorelei both did.
Oh boy, I hope I have it.
Well, if
Uh-oh.
you don't, I'll give you another one.
We might need another one. Okay, so my next question is, then you were already at NASA. What years were you? Do you remember what year you started at NASA and what year you retired?
I remember when I started. I started in must have been 1957, maybe. I know I started there when I had the Porsche Carrera, which was the fancy race car. I didn't
Yes, I
understand
remember.
race cars weren't good cars to drive every day. So I started there as an undergraduate, which means I was a technician not a scientist. So when I got my degree, then I was able to get a advance in my job description as an aerospace engineer.
That was
And
And
my
you
next
retired after 36 years of service.
Yeah,
So you can do the math.
I don't remember the date I retired.
Yeah.
And
it was
I want to
good.
say something. I want
Yes,
talking, and Dad, also of interest is you were hired at NASA before it was NASA. It was NACA.
that's right. It was called NACA, and that was very early. And it was NACA meant National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics.
Right.
And it was kind of neat because they published papers how to make airplanes fly. And I would go to the library, I could see the early editions, and you look at the people that were on the committee, and people were on it like Orville Wright. Yeah, and there's some, yeah, and I think Rickenbacker was on it, but it's the old days. Now, when Eisenhower became president, he says we got to get in the space business, so they changed that agency to NASA, National Advisor, National
Aeronautics and Space Administration.
National Aeronautics. That's right, and Space Administration. That's what he said. He changed it, so they covered over the NACA on the walls, and they put NASA, and we had to give up our badge, which said NACA, and our picture. And I shouldn't have. I should have said I lost it, because then we got little cards that said NASA, and I would have liked to have that whole badge, but I don't. It's gone.
Okay, so my next question is, I have just a few more questions, but it'll probably take a while. What projects did you work on? And now I know you worked on a whole lot of projects, and
yeah.
I'm kind of thinking in my mind specifically the Venus Pioneer mission, because that was one that I remember you talking about and you bringing me home stuff.
My very first project was dealing with high velocity guns that shot models that were models of spacecraft, because we had to study how they were entering the Earth's atmosphere, returning from a mission. And they would find when they shot these really, really, really fast, the air would glow around them, and they would they try to take pictures of them, and they get a bright streak across the picture. And I was asked to look in to see if I could see what that was from. So I studied that problem for quite a while.
Guns like
No, not like a gun you could shoot. These are high velocity guns. They would shoot like maybe
used for scientific experimentation,
like 10 times faster than a regular gun. So they weren't something you could go out and rob banks or shoot animals with. They were strictly a laboratory gun.
Right.
So I worked with those a lot, and the speeds we would routinely get to would be 20,000 feet per second, which is like 10 times a regular gun. And that was routine. So we worked on that, and that was studying what about bringing a spacecraft in from a mission, like from the moon or somewhere. When you get to the Earth's atmosphere, you're going real fast. So we would try to figure out what that meant in the laboratory. So we had these guns that fired into what we called a shock tube, which was a big chamber. And in our rowdiest days, we had air went counter to the gun going 20,000 feet per second into this chamber. And then the shock chamber, the air was going the other way really, really fast. And the chambers that ran the air, they used a lot of air, but we used to make the shock waves huge naval cannons that were machined to do just this. And they were gigantic things, 16 or 18-inch bore naval cannons. Now, they're finding kind of fun to work around, because there's nothing that light enough you can lift. It's all got to be done with cranes and things. So we did that for quite a while, and then you wanted to get into the Pioneer Venus stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, just about the Pioneer Venus mission.
Yeah.
My questions on the mission are what was your role in the Venus mission?
Yeah.
What was the outcome of the research from the mission? Those are basically the two questions I have regarding that, because I kind of want to narrow down my little report that I'm going to turn into just
Sure.
the one project.
Well,
because
I
that's
was
outer
brought
space stuff.
I was brought in to help with the Pioneer Venus mission. It was a mission underway, and what it was all about is they sent a couple of spacecraft to Venus to orbit around Venus for a long time to measure the planetary conditions and the atmospheric conditions. And I was brought in as kind of a court scientist to oversee things. So I was the
What
project
kind of scientist? Court?
like royalty.
COUT. That he's making up that word. That's not an
Oh,
official
okay.
title.
A court scientist where they would come to me and say, well, what does this mean? And I
So
lost my train of thought.
So your official title was
Project scientist
project scientist.
for the Pioneer Venus mission. And the Pioneer Venus spacecraft flew around Venus for a long time measuring data. And we had a whole lot of experimenters on it from different universities and things. And I would have to get to know them. And we had to shepherd who got how much time on the computer, and because you couldn't run all of them at once, they took too much power. But anyway, that was my job to sort of keep control of all that. And then what happened? What was the next part of the question? Where did it all lead to?
What was the outcome of all this research?
Oh, well,
how was the results of the research used to advance our?
we learned
Right.
about a lot about Venus, which was kind of good because Venus is a lot like Earth. It's about the same size, and it's a little closer to the sun than we are, but it has a cloud cover that reflects sunlight away. So the amount of sun that gets into the planet is about the same as it is for Earth. But it's kind of weird. It's really, really, really hot and high pressure carbon dioxide atmosphere. Different conditions totally. So we were kind of keen to know how come. Anyway, we studied the chemistry a lot and the atmosphere around Venus a lot. And the experiment, the spacecraft kept using up the energy. No, actually, what was happening, its planetary orbit would keep degrading because it could only stay up there for so long. And after I had left, it eventually crashed into the atmosphere and died. But we published thousands of papers on what's happening at Venus. I think I published one or two, but that was a lot of stuff.
It was, and that was basically so the results are just like informative, or were the results used to help us
Understand the planets.
Space travel, so it was just understanding.
Well, Venus, we're keen on Venus is because it was having a runaway greenhouse effect where the atmosphere just kept getting hotter and hotter. We were concerned about it back then. Hey, we're doing bad things to our atmosphere. How do we learn from all this? So we did all that.
Okay.
And then Venus, we eventually ended that project, and I went off to work in Washington, specifically having to do with, what did I go there for?
But that was before Pioneer Venus, honey.
No, after.
Because I was with you through.
Oh, you're right. For 1975, I went to Washington.
You went to Washington with them to work with Jim
Yeah,
King.
you guys were there too. And I worked with Jim King, and I tried to
And that was all about global atmosphere.
global atmospheres. And
it was the very beginning of the research being done on how we're polluting the atmosphere.
It was a governmental level stuff. And my boss and I, Jim King,
our own atmosphere.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're keen on let's not make it too bad for us. So Jim King and I, we went to Europe to visit the laboratories in England and France and Belgium to make sure they were doing stuff like we were doing, to make sure, because this is not a U.S. problem, it's a worldwide problem. And I tried to locate Jim King to see, I worked with him pretty closely for a year. He was another black guy, by the way. He and I got to be very good friends. But I thought it'd be nice to contact him and, what's your life like? And he died, though. Unfortunately, all the
Oh,
people I worked with are dead, except for one, and I keep in contact with him. So I spent a year in Washington doing that. And then what did I do?
And then there was another project between
sorry.
then, before Pioneer Venus, and I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember. We can have another meeting and I could try to remember some of this stuff.
We can do that. Okay, so that I only have one last question, and we can of course talk all we want about other little details.
But
and stuff,
Sonia, you should get the name. It's not Venus Pioneer. It's Pioneer Venus.
I'll get it right because
Oh,
I've got the
now-
project.
now I remember.
I'll get the details and
Yeah.
dates.
Now
and
I
stuff.
remember. We were very keen on a new kind of space exploration return of when you hit the atmosphere. If you're coming from Mars, oh my gosh, you're going fast. So you got to get rid of that kinetic energy, because otherwise you dip into an atmosphere and you burn up like a meteor. So one of the things we were studying was, what if we just fly a little bit in the top of the atmosphere and come out again and catch our breath, let things cool down, do it again until we can get ourselves going slow enough so we can come in and safely land the astronauts or cosmonauts.
Oh, that's
And
what
we
they do with
developed
the
something
space
called the-
shuttle. They kind of come in at a little bit of an angle.
Well, Space Shuttle was kind of kid stuff by this time. We're talking about coming in really, really, really fast. So the idea, we developed a program called Aero Assist Flight Experiment. I just use the initial letters for them, but I can't know if I can sort them. Aero Assist Flight Experiment, and it was a smaller spacecraft, not as big as a return from Venus or from Mars, but pretty big. And the idea was to bring it up to above shuttle altitudes, way above shuttle altitudes, and bring it into Earth's atmosphere like a lunar return, that kind of speed, and try to skip out of the atmosphere a few times. And I was asked to investigate the radiation from the hot air in front of the spacecraft. I think you came, Sonia, you came and listened to me talk to some of the Stanford people about it on your motorcycle.
Oh, I might have, but if I was little, I don't remember.
And the idea was this would revolutionize return from space, from flights, because you got to get rid of that. One of the way to get rid of that energy is to turn the spacecraft around, fire rockets to slow you down. But you got to carry a lot of fuel with you to do that. Now, part of the outcome of this is they ended up making a movie. Oh, we had to close the experiment down because, unfortunately, peace broke out. We stopped having problems with Russia, and they decided NASA should study how to make planes, personal transportation planes, fly faster than explore space. So they canceled a lot of these highfalutin programs, and one of them was ours. We had the spacecraft was all built, and my experiment was all perfectly designed and in place. It was ready to go, but it never flew. But I did that. That was a big deal. I had my title in that was called Principal Investigator, or PI. And a principal investigator on a spacecraft is Mr. Big.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was before, but that was before the Pioneer Venus or after the Pioneer?
Long after. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was kind of where it was all petering out, because as I said, peace broke out, and that just wrecked everything.
You know how peace is.
Yeah.
It means everybody's grabbing at the resources, and any resources that are devoted to really space exploration weren't suitable, because the military wanted us to do this stuff because they wanted the spin-off from this for their applications to kill people. So they were keen on us doing this stuff, but when peace broke out, they lost their power too. So what do you think of that?
That's all
That's
very
something.
good.
I got a question, and you can answer it quick. Skylab, that was the thing you worked on in DC, right? The environmental effects of Skylab on the atmosphere.
No. When I first went there, the big deal was the shuttle. They were worried about environmental effects of the shuttle.
Space shuttle. Okay.
Because when the shuttle goes up through the atmosphere, it could leave a UV transparent hole where its plume would leave this big tube of no sunlight to break up the ultraviolet. Ultraviolet sunlight could get through and fry people on the ground. That was the idea. We were to look into that. King and myself. And when I went there to take my position, Jim King's office was neat. He had a neat office and a big picture window behind him. And the big picture window behind him showed the Capitol building. It was, really, you got to be someone to get that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that quickly changed because the issue of atmospheric pollution and all that other bad stuff loomed its head, and the office got changed from shuttle effects to upper atmospheric pollution.
Oh,
and one biggie there was
that was back in the 70s.
Two researchers, Roland and I can't remember the other guy's name. Somebody tasked a graduate student with the job. I think Molino was his name. Roland was the professor, and he says to Molino, "You need a PhD thesis to work on Teflon, not Teflon, polytetrafluoroethylene, PVC. I guess that they're making so much of it. It's in the spray bottles that you get, and it doesn't pollute and it doesn't go away." Am I doing this right? I might become some of these things mixed up. I think
you're mixing two things up, right?
The chemical is polytetrafluoroethylene, and it's, I'll think of it when we're talking. But it's what was in this.
The same thing. It's the PFAS that everybody talks about now. If you have a drinking bottle, a water bottle, you don't want it to be PFAS lined because
phthalates.
But
the phthalates.
No,
they refer to it as PFAS.
Well, I'm not sure if that's the same. Polytetrafluoroethylene is the chemical. It was in the air conditioners, remember, in the refrigerators in your cars.
Yeah.
And then Freon, that's it. Yeah.
Freon.
And so Molina was asked for his PhD thesis. Freon doesn't react with anything. You let it go in the atmosphere and it's benign. It doesn't hurt anything. You can't smell it. Nobody gets sick from it, but it doesn't go away. And so much is being made. Molina was asked the idea, where's it all going? Well, what he found was a lot of it sneaks its way into the upper atmosphere, and it's bad in making chemicals up there that let the ultraviolet come through anyway. So it's really, really very exciting to the scientific community. And that's when our office got changed to studying this. And in Washington, when I was there. So that's what Jim and King and I did. We had to sort of study what the idea, we didn't study it. We managed the studying. And because we got into that, our enemies were something called Manufacturing Chemists Association, MCA. And MCA were the chemists, the organization of all the chemical companies, and they did a lot of research and published papers that they weren't doing anything bad because they didn't want to change anything.
Right.
And we were doing stuff to say, oh, this is not good. Oh, and one of the things I learned, I had to go over to the State Department to participate in some meetings that I was to represent NASA's position on what we're doing with the Freon. And the thing that came out of that meeting was that the State Department officials have better tailors than we do at NASA. They always look better groomed. But they were right across the mall. I had a wonderful office. It was on the 4th floor. And if I took the elevator down to the 1st floor, there was a neat cafeteria. I can go in and sit down and have coffee.
They don't want to do that.
Sure they do.
Yeah.
Because you walked out of the front door of the building that I was in, and right across the street was the Freer, Freer, Freer Gallery. And that was the gallery of art, which is really neat. And I liked it. And right across, it was at the mall. We were right on the edge of the mall where all these buildings were, the government buildings,
Mhm.
and the Freer Gallery. And if I kept walking across the mall from the Freer Gallery, I would come to the State Department and would go in there and I would try to look impressive, but I wasn't. I didn't have good tailors.
Right. Very good. Well, this gives me a lot of stuff that I can go on, and I appreciate it. We have a Zoom meeting now, and I can rewatch it. And Nick's here, and I'm glad he gets to see a bit of the highly important, complicated stuff you
Uh,
were doing.
Speaking of
If
which, I
you're-
gotta go here
If you
soon,
want to
guys.
pursue this further,
Oh, Nick has to say
Nick is
goodbye. He's got to go to
say
work.
Goodbye, everyone. This is
Bye,
awesome
Nick. Nice
conversation.
seeing you.
if you want to pursue
care.
this further, in my documents are things like job descriptions, because I would write a job description for myself, and I would have that written, and that would tell what I was doing in that time frame. So
Very good.
I'm all tuckered out now.
Awesome. I have one last question that's kind of just a fun question that I thought I would throw in. And that question is, do you believe in extraterrestrial life?
I think that's a great question.
But if life
I
exists.
think
Does
it's
life exist?
I think it's rather naive to think there isn't some form of life somewhere else in the solar system. There's too many
In the
planets.
solar system, in the solar
Oh, in the
system, or in
universe.
the universe?
Universe. It's
Yes.
naive to think we're the only life forms. Other than that, I don't have anything to say about it. So there are places. There is one organization that studies looking for some sort of a intellectual broadcast from space, saying there's someone out there or something out there. What were they called?
Well, they used to be called SETI, SETI.
Yeah, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And they used to show their equation telling what the probability of is that there'll be another intelligent set of beings that could send out something as advanced as an electronic signal. And I used to look at their equations. I knew them. They were in the building with me. And their assumptions were just silly. It didn't make any sense to me. Anyway, but there is one thing really important. Pete Seeger, you know the singer? Pete Seeger
Singer? No.
strokes the
Folk-
banjo.
folk singer from a long, long time ago.
Very
okay,
famous.
yeah.
His brother, Charlie Singer, worked across the
Seeger.
hall. Charlie
Seeger.
Singer was his brother and walked across the hall from me. And I would chat with him. We were friends. And
DC,
what?
which NASA, DC or Ames?
I don't. And
When you were
Which-
working at Ames or
Oh.
when you were working at Washington?
in Ames,
Okay,
in the latter part of my career, Charlie Seeger was in the office across there, and he used to tell me that he didn't have anything to do with his brother. They were in different worlds, but he said everybody that met him had to know about his brother, and he got tired of talking about him. So I met a lady that worked there that had never heard of Pete Seeger, never heard of him. So I trotted her over quick, and I said, "Charlie, this lady never heard of Pete Seeger." He was happy to meet her.
I'll bet.
Oh, that's funny. Gosh, well, thank you so much for answering all these questions and for being a part of the Zoom meeting. And we need to have Zoom meetings more often. Now that your camera's working, we just have to have our Saturday morning coffees together.
That would be
I
fun.
think this is lots of fun. Why did
Yeah.
He's
Nicholas have to run off?
got to go to work.
He
Let's
went
go
to
to work.
work.
Okay,
Nick's a productive member of society, and he works and he goes to school, and he's
one of us is productive. Good.
responsible and gets up and takes his
Okay.
shower. And
Hey, I'm really impressed with you girls taking classes like you're taking. I think that's really neat.
it's super fun. I've been enjoying it. Lorelai got me hooked on it, and now I'm addicted to taking classes. And I figured
Super.
out how to get A's in everything. I'm a straight A student.
Oh, I know how to get an A in any class. You just learn everything the teacher says.
and follow instructions. I found following the instructions is 90% of the battle.
And write it all down.
Yes. Well, we didn't have to write things down anymore. We got the computer. It's all just we type it all down.
Okay.
All
we
right,
got-
guys, I'm gonna process this video and I will load it up on YouTube. It will be private channel. If you have the link, you can look at it and I will send out the link to everybody.
Oh, that's
Great.
awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's just,
Do you guys know that your dad is now registered in the, what is it, that Congressional Library of Congress?
Did not know that.
if you
I'll have
Google
to
my
look it
name,
up.
if you Google my name and the word NASA, NASA, you'll pull some of that up.
Oh,
Cool.
I pulled something up, but I didn't know it was the Library of
I
Congress.
thought that's where it's stored.
No. San Jose State did, was the first of the California state universities to publish, a document of important people who have graduated from San Jose State. And they
Okay.
contacted your dad and interviewed him.
Oh,
And
cool.
so that's all in the Library of Congress
Wow.
now.
I will see if I can look all that up to Monday when I get to work.
I
I mean,
had
not when
something
I'm at
else.
work, at home.
I had something else I wanted to add. I can't I just forgot it again. I know now. When I went to visit the European agencies with Jim King, we had to get what they call an official passport, which is a fancy, it's different color passport. And in it is a statement is this, the bearer of this is on official US government business and he's allowed access to any of the embassies or anything. So it let me walk
Oh,
freely.
nice.
Really cool. But people told us you need a second regular passport because if a plane is ever occupied by terrorists, don't give them the
Oh.
official one. Give them a regular one. So,
Yeah.
so I had this 2 passports, and why is that significant? Oh, I remember now. And when they were setting up our official passport, we went to the official photographer at NASA to take passport pictures. Both Jim King and I. The pictures were beautiful. You probably have seen them on the genealogy stuff, but I've never seen a picture of myself. I looked really important.
Well, you
But,
were
uh,
important.
But I did that, and there was some other significant spin-off of that. Took the passports. Oh, I remember now. The State Department had to do an in-depth screening of us, and they found I had spelled my middle name several ways, like 3 different ways. Middle name is Allen, and I spelled it A-L-A-N or A-L-L-E-N or something like that. So they want to know about that because they don't like aliases. So I had to send a letter to the State Department stating that I have 3 aliases and they are the following, and signed it. So I'm registered at the State Department with having alias names.
Oh, that's awesome.
That good?
That's very cool. Yeah.
I thought so.
Just
Well,
silly.
gosh, well, thank you so much. Thank you for taking your time
Hey,
out this
thank-
morning.
Thank you
And,
for giving us some fun like this.
Yeah, it's really
Bertrand
fun, and
Russell. You should read your
it's-
Russell.
I'm gonna look him up. It's nice to know too, because growing up with all of this, I knew you worked at NASA, but it was always so confusing. But this kind of like makes it a little bit more
Oh.
clear what you were
was-
doing and what your roles were, because it was always just confusing.
It was confusing to me too. You weren't the only one.